All right, everyone. So welcome to the Taboo Filmmakers Club. I'm Sarah Koteles, one of your hosts. I'm here with Talyn Fiore and Hugh Macdonald, my two co-hosts. So come on. I've now seen it twice. I saw it a second time this
Oh, nice.
It's funny, the first time I watched it, I did love it. And the second time it hit me more on an emotional level, which I was surprised. Usually the first time you see a movie, you get emotional, but this time it was the second time. I thought it was great. The acting is amazing. The cinematography is great. I thought it was such a simple movie, and yet, like Mike Mills, who I didn't know much about him as a director until I saw this movie, and then I actually went back into his entire filmography, and I saw Thumbsucker, which is his first movie, Beginners, 20th Century Women. So that's how much I enjoyed this movie. Is I just started watching all this guy's films, and they're all like bittersweet and heartbreaking and so detail oriented. I don't know, it just makes me excited. Like, as a filmmaker, this type of movie makes me want to make more movies. Anyone else that wants to talk?
I'm curious too. I looked into the reason of why he made it black and white, but I'm just curious what everyone else thought about it. It was like obviously a very bold choice. The fact that the studio went along with it, he said that he wanted to make it feel like it was like a fable and very simplistic, almost like a documentary. Obviously it's scripted, but I just wanted to know what you guys thought about it. It takes a second almost for your eyes to adjust to it, to get used to it, but it does have that, that old Hollywood feel. And I just wanted to know, I know what my opinion is, but what did you guys think about the black and white?
I feel like black and white and New York together just have this magical combo.
Yeah.
Where it's just like so cinematic and so epic. I love the black and white. I didn't love the movie, but I loved the black and white.
Oh.
It was definitely, I thought it was funny because the movie was so simple, like you said. It was almost structured like a documentary, and at times you felt either that you were watching an improv scene. Like it was really nice that it didn't seem like it was very scripted at all. Like sometimes you really felt like maybe this had to have been just kind of like some free dialogue, which was really lovely. And I almost thought that like the black and the white was the one cinematic thing that they did to this film. Like everything was really so simple, and it was really, like you said, like a documentary style. And so all the shots were very just here, and then they had the flashbacks and the scenes, but to me it was like the black and the white was almost like the little shimmer. Like it was the one thing where if it had been in color, maybe it wouldn't have had the same kind of nostalgic appeal. Like there wouldn't have been that disconnect, as though you were kind of like watching something that wasn't happening right now. So it was interesting, and I kind of did wonder like why they made that decision, because it would have seemed even more like a documentary if they had put it in color. And so I was curious about that, why they chose to put that almost like that wall where it's like that kind of disconnects the audience the teeniest bit from feeling like they're in the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I did see like a lot of interviews with Mike Mills, and he basically said he wanted to kind of abstract the story, take it out of like reality. And then he said that when he was initially thinking of this idea for the film, all he kept seeing was the silhouette of an adult with a silhouette of a child, like just going through these different cities, which I thought was amazing and beautiful. And
that's sweet.
And also, it was, like you said, Danielle, there was with the interviews with the kids, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, there's no way that these were scripted. Like the because the moments were so cute. And I'm like, I don't even know if you could get a kid to redo that, because they're so quirky and pure every time.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be curious to know how many of those were.
Were those part of like a real documentary project though? I feel like I heard that.
It seemed like it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I felt like, I don't know, I might have totally made that up, but I felt like I heard that those interviews with the kids were like part of an actual documentary project. But that I could be.
I mean, that would make sense for why it maybe like seemed like it was just so, I don't know, it did seem so unstructured in a lot of ways. Like
it's like a real
like, you were just kind of like, oh, taking along with it. But I don't know, it was one of those ones where you could have ended the movie feeling like, was that all worth it? Like, was that length worth it for what the movie was trying to do. Because there were parts where I kind of wanted, I don't know, I wanted to see more like development in the kid, maybe specifically. Like you saw this character development in Johnny, but then the kid kind of remained the kid throughout. Like was
Well,
kind of the same.
I don't know if a kid is going to develop that much in a few
Right.
years. You know, it's like, I think that's the beauty of it, is that the adult in this circumstance is being so affected by the child that it is like changing in a few weeks. And for me, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd watch it again, but I really enjoyed it. I feel like there's so few films that show almost like the perspective of the child and just like how easily they're affected by things. I really thought it was brilliant how the mother parented, how he gave them scripts, and it was just like a different way of parenting that we've ever seen really in a film. And I thought that that was beautiful, and just showing how it's hard, but there's different ways to do it that's easy. And also like how this kid was so unique, but also mature in certain ways. It's like, how do you deal with someone when they're a child and you're still the adult, but you know, they're so mature that they're asking these big questions. So I just thought it was cool to see that point of view. There's not many things that show children as individuals and not just kids in a movie.
Yeah.
Have you seen Belfast?
I have not seen it yet.
Okay, that's that one is also in black and white, and it's also like the troubles in Ireland through the eyes of a kid. And I had seen them like pretty close together, and I just, for some reason, the kid in Come On, Come On, I just felt like he was like a little bit, I didn't feel any sympathy for him whatsoever. I just felt like he was a bit of like a brat, and I was like, he's running the show here. And
in Come On, Come On.
Yeah, in Come On, Come On.
I did feel that a bit too. I'm like, damn.
Right, like, and I don't know, I love the cinematography and I love the shots. I felt like it would have been an amazing short film. It just felt too long. Like he ran away from Johnny in New York twice. Like I got it the first time.
Right.
And I don't know, I just didn't connect with the kid very much at all.
I did in moments. There, like you said, if it was a short film, there were some moments that I really felt for him. Like when he's so upset on the phone when the mom says she's coming, he's like, take the phone. Like he's so upset that he can't even like interact. But there were definitely parts where I was like, damn, like this kid is running the show.
Right.
Where I'm like, is he spoiled? I can't tell if he's like really spoiled or he's going through a hard time, so they should be nice.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously I don't have kids, but my sister, you know, has a daughter, my niece, and that kid runs their life. Like they give her so like part of me now seeing my niece, I'm like, oh, this is really how it goes. Like kids do run the show.
Yeah, my parents said that like they felt like they were just watching not exactly something they've already experienced, but they've like gone through parenting and they didn't want to have to see it happen all over again.
Oh my gosh.
Edgar, what did you think of the kid? Lorraine has saying.
I have a kid. Yeah. I think I'm on the same boat that Hugh. I really like everything, the premise. There's a lot of things, a lot of points which I could relate to. A lot of them like where it's like super close to home. I have nephews too. You know, like sometimes like spending time with them gives you this very unique sense of parenting that, you know, from a very safe point, but like you can kind of like get a bit of a taste of what a child can teach, or like seeing things from their perspective. And there's a lot of things in which like I related to the things that my nephews do to me sometimes. Like whenever I don't see them for long periods of time, sometimes they don't recognize me. Sometimes they don't know like if like how much they can, you know, how close they can actually be to me. And then all of a sudden they start to open up, and I call it they Uncle Buck me. You know that scene with Macaulay Culkin and Uncle Buck, and he's like, they're just like sitting in the table. It's like, why are you married? Do you have any dogs? Do you own a house? That you know, they start to make like all of these super personal questions that kind of like put perspective onto like, man, like why don't I have all these things? You know, like I should. You know, like even this kid knows that I don't have my shit together. And I think like the kid did it in the beginning, and that was like super relatable. And that's happened to me a couple of times with both of my nephews. But at some point, like I was like, dude, like this kid is either super spoiled or even I thought, is he autistic? Is this like part of the thing? Because there's just so many things in which like it doesn't make sense. Like that he's so like I don't know, just conveniently stubborn to run away. And like, what's your plan? Like you're in New York, you're gonna run like for real. Like I just didn't seem like believable to me that a kid would do. Just be like so conveniently bratish and Joaquin's Phoenix reactions to the kid were furthering the story. Like I think like the first time when they were in like the little bodega in New York, I think that was really cool. But like the second and third time in the park and when they were going to the plane, I'm like, nah, dude, like, I don't know. I felt maybe like the story could have been 20 minutes shorter.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
I feel that about a lot of movies that are coming out right now. And I guess it's because like everything's on streaming, so they're not trying to like pack more movies into a day at the movie theater. So they're not making them as short. But sometimes I'm just like why is House of Gucci almost 3 hours long?
Oh yeah.
Why is Dune like 3 hours long? Like they're great, but
Yeah.
It seems like 2.5 hours is like the new standard almost.
right.
The last 5 movies I've seen in the theater have all been 2.5 hours.
Yeah. And
Crazy.
some of them do such a good job of taking that entire time to really like build the background and really build the characters. But I've noticed this trend a lot in films, maybe outside of the indie genre, which is why I like indie movies. But it's like they try to pack the backstory in the first 5 minutes. So they're giving you these like lines and these quips and these moments that don't seem realistic to try and lay down some kind of foundation or context for what you're about to see. And so that's what's nice about these kinds of films is you get to almost sit back a little bit and be like a fly on the wall because you get to see more of the process. And that, I guess that is what was nice about this. And maybe that's why they chose to put all of that footage in there and have all of those scenes happen because they wanted you to feel like you were really seeing this entire process. And maybe that's like why I really enjoy movies. Like I remember Boyhood was one that I enjoyed so much. And that was such an interesting filming style to do it over like such a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But all of the scenes were like of dialogue were very long and there were moments of introspection and quietness where there would be no talking at all. And you almost got to like feel the awkwardness of conversations that happen in real life. And I did find that in Come On, Come On. Like you got to see the tension and a bit of that awkwardness that happens in interactions with people that a lot of movies that are really, really scripted just totally lack. So that was really nice to be a part of that and see that.
Yeah, and watching it a second time, I realized like the relationship between him and his sister is so interesting, the way that their dialogue is, because in the very beginning, he calls her and it's very clear, but with such little dialogue that it's the anniversary of their mom's death and they hadn't talked in a year. And like so much is revealed and they really don't say much. And I'm like, this is so smart. And even just their relationship, which is not great, you know, it's very clear that they don't talk to each other much. And the kid keeps asking, why don't you guys act like brother and sister? Like, what's going on? So I thought that was so smart. And like, I just feel like in big budget blockbusters, they don't do shit like that. Like they spell it out and it's just too obvious. And they'll even say things like, oh, we haven't talked in a year.
Right. They'll say it so literally and they'll be like after the alcohol and then you did this and then like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I absolutely loved in the film was in the beginning when the kid was saying, you know, if you love her, why aren't you married to her? And I love later, I mean, I feel like we've all had that where like, it's like, damn, I wish anyone could answer those questions for any adult that's ever been through a breakup. But then I love when he was recording after and he's telling it about it. And he goes, and then I made some stupid joke about it. Why did I do that? And I just thought that moment of self-reflection was beautiful.
Yeah.
So many people do the humor. And I just loved that like moment of showing that.
That's another thing I wanted to bring up, the whole device of cutting to his little journal entries, his audio journal. I really love that about the movie because it's like exposition without it feeling heavy-handed exposition. And we really get insight, like even that scene where Woody, or that's his real name, Jesse, is saying, oh, my mom got an abortion, and like we're cutting back and forth to his audio journal and then like the real moment, and Joaquin is like, I never knew she got an abortion. Like, you know, and it's like that whole like audio diary thing I thought was amazing, and yeah, just
Yeah,
insightful.
that was really cool. I wasn't sold on the kid interviews either. I feel so cynical. I'm like, I wasn't sold on the kid interviews. Like, I thought they could have been good, but I felt like they were like poised to be profound and like deep and emotional. But I felt like the kids weren't really saying anything that I found poignant at all. I was just like, I don't know. I felt like they were almost a little bit like BuzzFeed reactions. I don't know.
What do you think? What do you think the kids were like? If they were trying to portray an overall message, like what do you think they were saying? Like if all together,
I feel like they were just commenting on like things about adulthood,
right?
that they perceive in a maybe a way that would make, I don't know, in a more, they perceive things about adulthood that they don't yet understand, in a way like, oh, why are adults so complicated? It's like, I've heard that kind of thing, and I wish that there was just something that they were saying something, if those were to be included that much, I wish that they were saying something a little bit more touching. The only part that I felt genuinely like touched at was at the end when the kid went back with his mom, and I was like, oh, now Johnny is like, I just felt like the weight of his aloneness again
Yeah.
when the kid left after having had this kid who he's had these problems with and whatever, and now he's like back alone and it's quiet and it's silent. That's the only part that I really felt touched by.
Yeah.
It was cute too how at the end in his little monologue that he's saying of I hope you remember. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
How kids come into our lives, and because we have, you know, fully formed brains, we remember it just as much as any other relationship, and how these kids can have these experiences and completely forget it. It's so
Right.
how that's beautiful. He was like, I'll remind you of every part. I thought it was a nice little
Yeah, that was very sweet. That was very sweet.
Yeah. But he did make a full circle. That was almost like the interesting thing is like he was alone in the beginning, and obviously he ended with having this whole new experience and perspective on life under his belt, but then he ended up alone. And so it's almost like you do, because I think people always crave some kind of fruit, like bearing fruit from suffering or from some kind of hard experience. And it was like, you know, most people want like a tangible fruit, but I guess it was maybe just that his fruit from that wasn't going to be tangible at all. And it was like just kind of left with him as this like intangible thing. I don't know. It was just very interesting that he was like in the same position.
Yeah. I
at
feel
the
like
end.
movies that end like that are so reflective of reality.
Yeah.
I've noticed like there have been a few movies where there's not a big ending, and people that I talk to like don't like the ending, and they're like, oh, but nothing happens. Like, how is this person changed? I was like, but that's life. Like sometimes people don't change.
Right. Like people just like want, like most audiences really just like want that, the trouble, the climax, the problem, the resolve. It's great. And then here's the fruit from what they went through. And it is like life just is not like that. And you go through that cycle that he went through all the time in life. And then it's like, I don't know, it would be interesting if they like to kind of see if it was like a film like Boyhood, to see the progression, like what happened after. But it's good to be left with that curiosity sometimes. You know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like he's alone again at the end, but it's kind of like, but how is he changed internally
Right.
because of that? And so I think that that's the beautiful part, because that is like you said, like real life. You go through something and you're sitting there like, whoa, but then everything on your outer looks the same. But then how do you then use that internal shift to change the outer reality?
Yeah.
Come on to the sequel. Let's go.
Literally another
Nothing changes. Probably like nothing would change. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh.
I like could watch Joaquin though like all day as that character, and because I think it's so refreshing to see him as just a normal guy, like kind of schlubby, like just like a random guy. I don't know, because I feel like
that's what he always is.
I don't know. I feel like he plays these like very, I don't know, like stylized characters, like in Her and Joker.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, and I was just like a guy you would see on the street and not think twice, you know?
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time I saw him, or maybe it was the first time I acknowledged that it was him, was in Gladiator.
Mm.
And he plays, and I can't remember the name of the character, but he just plays just this so unbearably dislikable person, right? Like just someone that you're like, whoa, this is a person. And so I remember, like, it's funny, I always thought about that, like my view on him as an actor was so based upon that very first experience that I had with him. And he's so able to play these like really like these characters that just, there's a lot going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And he does that very well. Like he plays those characters where there's like, you can just tell like inside there's just like chaos, and you're seeing him externally dealing with that. And so it was like, I didn't know if maybe like that was so easy for him because it was like a lot like he is in real life, because he's a pretty kooky guy. Like if you watch him in interviews, and he went through that whole phase where he was like pretending to be a certain character in interviews.
Oh, I didn't even know
Yeah,
that.
it was like,
Oh yeah, he was doing
wait,
some
what
like
was that?
he was doing some movie where he was playing a rapper or a DJ or something.
Yeah.
And he would like go on to talk shows as the character. But the
Yeah.
character was like very
Strange.
like angry and like dark.
Yeah, like
I didn't
very
see-
strange.
Is it from this movie? I hadn't seen it. I think it's called I'm Not Here. Is it
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay. I remember seeing the movie posters for that. That's interesting. Because, yeah, I was watching some behind the scenes of Come On, Come On, and sometimes Joaquin was part of the panel, and he was behaving very weird. Like, for about 20 minutes, he just had his head down, and, like, the mic was like this, and, like, he wasn't responding to anything. And, like, Woody and Mike Mills, the director, would be, like, talking and interacting with the Q&A person. And Joaquin was just like very antisocial. And then suddenly he like got up and just started talking, and I was like, oh, he's alive.
Right.
Yeah, he's just an interesting guy. And I think I'm always looking for like, because I always go down rabbit holes of interviews with actors that I really love. And so I'm always looking when I see them in movies, probably too much like, oh, that's them. That's a little bit of them right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like mannerisms, the way they say something.
Yeah.
So it's always really interesting. But yeah, but he was doing in some scenes, you were kind of like, he was able so much more in this movie to maybe just kind of be like himself. I don't know, more like kooky, because it wasn't so much of having to really dial into this like very specified character and mindset. But yeah, it was like very different. It was just really strange to see him in that way, because I was almost waiting for like something sinister to happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh my gosh,
just a weird persona.
just waiting for something weird to happen.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The last thing I guess I'll talk about is, did you guys like the audio design? Because I heard that the director spent like a really long time. Like he even said that like when Joaquin would like run his fingers through his hair, like they would add like 12 sounds. So apparently like the audio design was like really, they spent a long time on it. So did you guys notice that, or?
I'm not sure I noticed anything in particular, and I did see it in the cinema as well, so.
Oh, okay.
But
I was wondering, because I didn't see it like in the theater, if I didn't notice the audio as much.
Right.
It's so interesting, right? Because it's like there's always these little nuances that I feel like sometimes the director or the creator wants to throw in there, and it's interesting where like it doesn't translate. So it's like so much, you know, obviously the black and white is very obvious, you know, like I think that was a beautiful choice. But it's interesting because like the audio, none of us even noticed. So it's like, I wonder how much time as a filmmaker, like I'm sure you as well, Sarah, it's like you make these little choices and people watch it and you're like, did you notice? And they're like, no. And you're like, damn, that took like a whole day of editing or X amount of dollars. And it's so interesting to see what translates to the audience.
I bet like an audio, well, because Hugh, you're like an audio guy. I was going to say only the audio people probably.
Right. No, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, Danielle and I are both audio people, but I'm not sure I noticed anything. But like those nuances, I don't know if anybody's seen Motherless Brooklyn.
Mm-mm.
but they it's basically in New York as well, and that has like one of my favorite nuanced things. I was watching an interview with the cinematographer who was Dick Pope, and he basically said he found a ton of boxes of like anonymous street photography of New York, and the whole movie is like they recreated these photos in the shots, and
Oh,
the
wow.
shots are so nice. And when you hear about that and then you go back and watch it, it's really cool.
Yeah, I didn't know about that context of it.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, but it is like, I know that definitely like there's a whole market, and I always forget what it's called. I think it's like ASMR, where it's like very people really like these intimate sounds, and that's a decision definitely like when I'm recording vocals, that's a decision that you make like depending on what kind of mic you use, and there's like so many factors to it. But I do know that I tend to like movies where that's very apparent and you can hear it. And it's very interesting to know the actual reality behind it, that there's someone in a studio like crunching iceberg lettuce to get the sound of a, like something really strange, or they're, and you can find so many videos of people doing that and creating the sounds. But that's like, yeah, that's so funny. I didn't notice that, but it's.
I do feel like I noticed when the kid had the mic.
Yeah.
They really like amped that up to show the kids' experience.
Yeah.
So I would say that I noticed it on all those parts where it was heavily like increased.
Yeah.
Right. And come out with ADR, I shot something and it's hilarious when you go back and reshoot it and you like have your hands in shoes and you're just like making all the things. Like you're sitting there like, this sounds like it, or like you're using your hand to like get the peck. It's such
it's so weird, and I always get curious about like how much of movies are overdubbed in that way, especially like with even just with dialogue.
Majority
I've started noticing the mistakes, like when you notice like the shot from behind and someone's saying something but their jaw isn't even moving.
Oh yeah, I
know. You notice these little things and you're like, oh whoa, like they have to overdub a huge amount of the movie. Like I didn't even.
It's like the mic is there just as a almost as like a foundation of like what to match the ADR to. Most everything is dubbed because to get the isolation of the sound when you're out on set is so difficult, even with all the professional boom and the mic. Because I always notice when they butter toast in movies, I'm like, it's always specifically toast. It's like so loud. I'm like, okay. I've never heard my own toast be buttered, like, and I'm close to it,
Oh my gosh, I do like it though. It does like add especially, I don't know why I like it when it's almost overemphasized, like when the sounds, and I think that's something that like you would have seen like in the French Dispatch, like that kind of like Wes Anderson, where it's like everything almost has a sound effect. Like even when they look to the left, it's like whoosh. Yeah. And then, everything has this little effect. And I just like adore that. I love that so much. Oh my gosh.
I didn't like the French Dispatch. I just want to say that.
Not either. I really liked it.
That's like sacrilegious for me to even say because I love Wes Anderson and I was very, very disappointed. But
it was just, was there one story in it that you liked, or was it the whole thing?
The Benicio del Toro story, the one where he's the crazy artist,
that
was the only one I cared about or even remembered, honestly. Like, there's so many freaking storylines that, like, and then at the Frances McDormand one, that was weird with Timothy Chalamet. They were in the same bed together, and then later it's revealed that they have a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't have anything against the age difference, but I was like, it didn't come across that they were having a relationship, but it was weird when they were in bed together and Timothy Chalamet is like shirtless and she's like on a typewriter or something. And I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah. And I totally got what they were doing. It was almost like a suite. Like when you write a song, like there's a certain style of song that you write where it has like 3 completely different parts that kind of flow together. Mm-hmm. So I did see what they were doing, but I totally agree. Like, the movie could have been an extended version of that very first story that they told, and I would have been so happy.
I only would want to watch that because his relationship with the guard who like models for him, that was so interesting. And like I didn't, with the first scene where he's like painting her or whatever, and then she puts on her uniform, and then she's the one in charge. Like that was awesome. And even what's his name? Adrian Brody is in that section, and I loved his, like, everyone in that section was just great and very
Yeah, that was top notch.
Yeah.
It really was.
It was just too much. Like, it's just, you can't, it's so hard to get invested into more characters when you're already invested in the first set. And now you're like, okay, now we're switching. And it's like difficult for your mind, especially when you're in a theater. I feel like it's a little bit different if you're watching a show because we're trained in like a different way. But yeah, I just felt like the whole time I was like, it was like whiplash, and I was just, it was like almost overstimulating. And I just was, I was not a fan of it either. There were like moments, of course, that I liked.
Yeah.
Just overall, I left and I was like, I wouldn't recommend that movie to anyone.
Yeah. Maybe it was just like, you tried it, you did it, maybe don't do that again. You know, one of those.
Yeah.
And then when it would show the newspaper, it was like trying to also make it like seem real too, like true story. It was just like, I'm trying to like read it, and then there's different audio, different words. It was like too much to try to grapple at once.
Yeah. I was actually talking to Edgar about this like a few weeks ago, and I said, I think Wes Anderson was just given a huge budget this time. It's very clear that he had a bigger budget than past films, and nobody told him no, because he's Wes Anderson. But sometimes like directors need to be told no.
Yeah.
Right.
I do love, just because like I did theater my whole life up until I went to college. I was in musical theater and theater. And I just adore the set, like how he works the sets, where they're almost like these beautiful puzzle pieces that will come apart. And it reminded me so much of how you see on stage, where everything's kind of just moving and flowing, and the set is moving and flowing behind the actors. And that part is just so unique. Like, I haven't seen a whole lot of other directors attempt to almost like theaterize their movies in that way, where it's like they're even structuring it, the set, the same way that you would on stage, which I just love that, because it's just like a, I don't know, just like, it almost reminds me of like Monty Python, very, I don't know, and I love Monty Python. It just kind of reminds me of that very like quirky, where it's almost like the set is a collage, a mosaic. And I think
that like a lot of people say about, probably not for this movie because there were so many big stars in it, and there was the three different parts, but a lot of people say that he does do almost like a very theater thing with his cast, where he has everyone like live with each other, like if it's going to be and like I forget what it was. Someone was like roasting like Bruce Willis. I forget like which one, or I think it was Bruce Willis, like some like big star was in one, and like everyone else was like bunking together and like doing like the Wes Anderson like experience, and then he was just like, screw you guys, like I'm not gonna bunk with you guys. And it was just like,
he's like, we're not sleeping over together.
Yeah, like he's like, no, like I'm good on that.
I think it was Gene Hackman in the Royal Tenenbaums, because I heard from the director that like Gene Hackman was just kind of taking over as the director, like Wes Anderson, because I don't know if you've ever seen interviews with him. He's a very like mild-mannered person, like very quiet. And I could see like Gene Hackman like taking over, and he's like, so we'd be getting the shot ready, and then Gene would go, all right, this is going to be a walk and talk thing, and we're going to walk down the street and we're going to do it. And then Wes Anderson would be like, okay, all right.
Oh, whoa.
So I got the impression that like Gene was like calling the shots, and like,
oh, that's interesting
that he was in. But that's also one of my, it's probably the favorite Wes Anderson movie of all of his films.
Tenenbaums. Yeah, I love that one.
I'd like to bunk with Bill Murray.
Yeah, come on.
For that. Why not?
Yeah, I know, that would be amazing.
Has anybody else seen the other Mike Mills film? Maybe you have, Sarah, Beginners?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I thought that one was awesome. Yeah.
The funny thing is, I was watching it after I saw Come On, Come On, and it wasn't until like 15 minutes in that I realized I already saw it back in 2010 when it came out.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
That's so crazy. And then I always thought that's a really bad sign that I don't remember it, but I don't think it's a bad sign. I just think it's been like over 10 years since I saw it. Like, of course, like.
Yeah. And I think all the little drawings in it were like Mike Mills drawings as well.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because he's a designer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
That was a cool one.
And I just looked it up. So it was Bruce Willis and Moonrise Kingdom. That's the one.
Oh.
Like, everyone else was like, okay. Bruce was like, no, I want to be like at the Ritz. Like, I'm not hanging out with you guys. The little shack that you're all are staying at.
I just would not put up with that.
Yeah. It is cool how Wes does that like theater vibe. Like usually whenever you do a production, because I grew up in theater, it's like you get to know each other. You have all those like run throughs. It's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
something so lovely about that. Like, and maybe it is just because like I love theater so much, and it's so different, because when you're as an audience member, when you're in the audience, like you're not getting to see all these like tiny, minute little details in people's expressions, and so it is like it is really cool just to like, especially see actors who have come from the stage and the difference in how they will relate to the camera and kind of portray something. It is just really cool. And I often have found that way, 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 way more actors than I thought that are in kind of mainstream or even indie films now did come from the stage. Like that's becoming a very valuable asset, or they're either going to the stage and like switching to it to do stage drama. So it is really cool.
Yeah, I always felt like, not that I'm an actor, but I feel like in the actor world, you're almost like not that great of an actor if you've never done theater.
Yeah, it does have that a bit, that stigma of it. And then it like goes to the, well, if you haven't done Shakespeare,
Doesn't count.
not even there,
It's so I did theater and I came to LA like, I don't know, maybe like 7 years ago. And I remember they had to tell me to like not project so much. They're like, the mic is right here. Cause I'm, in theater, it's like you're projecting, the last person in the audience has to hear you.
Right.
And then
the old deaf guy in the back.
Your eye twitches and the camera's like, gotcha. So it's like, I had to unlearn a lot to do camera work.
Oh my gosh.
I also heard that like, actors that come from the theater, they have to learn to minimize their expressions. Because, like, especially when you're shooting like a close-up shot, like, trust me, we see everything.
Right.
Yeah, it's so different.
That's cool. Well, I think we should wrap up the meeting. I think this is a very successful
this is
Taboo
fun.
Filmmakers Club. Thank you all for joining. And, so the next movie we have is The Lost Daughter. Has anyone seen it already?
Seen it. Oh, so
luckily this one is free if you have not.
So what? I was like, I want to know what you were gonna say. So what?
Oh, I just there's a lot with that movie.
Yeah, thumbs down for me.
I'm just it's like worth. I don't know if I would tell someone like, you have to go and see this movie. And I almost want to tell everyone like, before you see this movie, read the book. Because to me it's almost like I got lucky that I was watching it with my mom, and she had read the book and she was giving me all of this like contextual detail, because I'd have to pause the movie and be like, wait, why is this, and why are they, and like why is she doing, it was like it was so much of that. But there's a lot I could say.
I think I'll just say one thing quick and then we can wrap. But like, I recommended it to my sister because my sister is a mom. I think and I'm not, but I do think like if you're a mom, you're especially going to take something from this film, but I
hated it, so not all moms.
Did she? Yeah, but it's funny.
She tried to watch it like 5 times, and like it was just so boring that she kept turning it off.
Oh no!
I heard too. Somebody said it was basically structured like a horror film, which I could totally see that. Like it was, it was weird, and there was like this uneasiness throughout the entire thing. Oh,
Lorraine said too slow.
Too slow.
I'm just confused, I've seen the whole thing and I'm still confused.
I think if you know Maggie Gyllenhaal, like it makes sense that she made a film like this. Like she seems very like intellectual, and like she sees other movies like this.
Yeah.
So if she made a film that was like, I don't know, more mainstream, I would find that weird,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's true.
We'll have to save some though for the next time.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like,
But anyway, thank you everyone for joining. This has been super fun, and I'm excited about our future meetings. So.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, all right. See you guys later. Enjoy your weekend. Bye.
Bye.